It is 6:30. We'll call this session of council to order. Regrets from Councillor Lackey, who can't be here tonight, and our Mayor Karina Smith-Gatke is away on holidays with family. At this time, we'll have our clerk play the national anthem. Please stand. Thank you, everyone. Have a motion to adopt the agenda moved by, that's a good test here. Moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson. All in favor? Nobody's opposed and carried. Thank you. Resolution Council 2023 period 134 that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Is there any questions from council? No questions. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the agenda? Thank you. No opposed, carried. Do any members of council have any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof tonight on any subject matter? No. Okay, we're good. There's no in-camera session this evening. Consent agenda adoption of and or receipt of minutes. 7.1 September 11th, October the 3rd, 2023 public meeting minutes. September 11th, 2023 council meeting minutes. October 3rd, 2023 committee of the whole meeting minutes, and August 29th, 2023 committee of adjustment minutes. Is there any questions? Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just questioning on September 11th council meeting. There was a question about the confirmation on when their Greens are going to start their project. And I know there was a light discussion then, but I just wondering if that's coming back to us at another time or later on, or whether it can be answered yet about when the actual project's starting, because of the year extension that they got.
For you, that's a draft plan of subdivisions, so I certainly can't dictate that. They have work they need to do to complete their draft plan approval. If it's not completed within if they aren't able to move ahead with an application for final approval or obtain final approval within the 1 year that it was extended, then they would either have to come back for a further extension, or hopefully they will be proceeding towards a final approval at that time.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson. The September 11th and October 3rd, 2023 public meeting minutes be adopted as circulated. That September 11th, 2023 council meeting minutes and October 3rd, 2023 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the August 29th, 2023 committee of adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Staff reports. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by, I'll have to have some clarity. Moved by Councillor Jameson, seconded by Councillor Grell. The council approves the staff reports as recommended at the October 3rd, 2023 committee of the whole meeting. Any questions? Sorry, Councillor Jameson, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted, if you will indulge, Mr. Chair, to take a couple of minutes on the new Jeffries file, not with the idea of not pulling it, but just some comments. It's not that I'm having buyer's remorse or governor's resource, whatever, but I want to raise a couple of points, if I may. And we're seeing in this agenda, and we'll see in every agenda, some pretty heavy duty costs coming at us and more costs coming down the line. When brace yourself for a blue box, and everything else we're going to face. But residents do expect us to underwrite things like libraries and parks and so on, and these are the non-essential things, and I'm saying non-essential only because they're not a regulatory requirement. So we all know this. So the decision needs some clarification for me. We did not, as far as I understand, commit to a figure. We committed to a process to arrive at a plan that would involve at some point a figure. And I'm assuming that the status quo means that right now we're looking at the current year's figure to be recommended to this council during the budget process. And that's a question I want to leave with, because I have a couple of other comments. So there was no dollar figure attached, so I'm assuming that becomes discussion later. So we have to determine as council in the context, I hope, of our other budget discussions, to my point about the concern about costs going up. So I would really like to understand what the parameters are to pursue this, because this is moving on. Because I don't think it's an exercise in just simply writing a check and satisfying what users think they want to do with that building, because at the end of the day, this cost is not about a recreation program. I still have the opinion that it is about supporting a tired building. It is not about recreation programming in general. So I also wonder what GAN residents actually think about the gross cost of carrying this arena. So we did ask for a plan last year. This council, with one exception, obviously, we approved sending this back, saying we'd approve 1 year and saying, bring us a plan. And a year later, we basically got a presentation that said, let's have a conversation, but there was no plan. So obviously in the last 12 months, nothing was done. And that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me, because I've seen too many other things inside this township start to really move, start to really cook. So I'm concerned that we're going to be having this same conversation over and over. So if it is indeed a long range planning exercise, I guess my point is perhaps this is an opportunity to look at a more creative approach to this thing. And this is where I'd like to lean a little bit on whatever group is put together. And that is in the service of the exercise to consider expanding the cooperation, save both municipalities some money on duplicate expenditures, and actually do everything based on public survey and data that demonstrates that there is actually need. This is a market area of 15,000 people, including Gananoque. And it strikes me that maybe we're doing too many things the same. And my example is my favorite, pickleball. I know that people in Sealy's Bay who for some reason, maybe they were mad at us, maybe they were angry with each other, decided they were going to go and play in Gan. It's actually takes less time to get from Sealy's Bay to Gan than it does to get from Sealy's Bay to Lansdowne, and base it on my travel time. So Gan is 8 minutes away from Lansdowne. And when you put it in perspective, is there an opportunity based on what we are actually doing for adults to think about now the time being to open the whole thing up? There was a joint services recreation plan brought to the 14-18 council. And it didn't go anywhere at that time, but there were a number of decent ideas. I guess the problem for everybody involved was it was an incredible amount of money. I think we were talking about Olympic swimming pools and all kinds of things that were just not going to happen. But now we're at a different stage, and we are both municipalities have challenges, and perhaps this is the time with this process to open up that discussion. And that's really the point of the conversation, not to shut it down. I just don't think an exercise to try to figure out what to do that with that one building really serves either municipality well. But if we started to look at how many pickleball courts do we need in the south? If there's a demand, yes, I guess so. But do we know there's truly a demand? And that goes for tennis and baseball and all the things that go on or don't go on. We had quite a bit of work done on our baseball diamond up in Sealy's Bay, and I didn't see one game or hear one game played this summer. So it's time for us to take a look at the data and try to figure out who's using this stuff and see if we can work together with the other municipality to look at joint services and try to avoid, duplicating where it isn't necessary. So that's really the point of my conversation. The only point I would add is I recognize that as the children are arriving, and they certainly are, we're seeing more children in the villages up in our way. In fact, the parent and taught program at the library was one morning a week. Now it's 2 mornings a week. So we're having a diaper invasion, and this is good. You got to grow your community with children, and I can understand why we would have small local undertakings in the villages. But I'm not sure whether we need full-blown pickleball court efforts and tennis and natural ice rinks sort of everywhere when we're in a market area that with 15,000 that I don't think, if we saw the stats, would support multiple facilities. So I don't know how this moves ahead, but I would really like to see this built into this whole discussion in some respect. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Good points, well made. I just will add, in all fairness, the expected report that you referred to coming due this year from last year's ask from this township. There was a municipal election in between. The council of Gananoque was all but 2 of the original from the previous council back on there. So they may have had a full agenda on their own and just didn't have the time to bring that to fruition. CEO Donachie, did you want to add anything to Mark's comments about our commitment to our last meeting of creating a working group, if we will?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Yes, so a number of councillors have come and asked questions about, well, what did we just agree to with respect to the arena? And my view is we give this a year of we renew for 2024 season. We get this working group up and running, and I'll come back to council in June with a status update of where are we, what's the status of this building, what do we see, what's the vision, and how do we get there? I think June is good timing because it gives us enough of a runway that if council wants to pivot and go in another direction or with respect to the arena, then there is still time and we're not staring down the year end and, you know, do we have to kick this ball down for another year? Councillor Jameson's comments about expanding this, I think right now the field is wide open for us with GAN as far as ways to collaborate and join forces and avoid duplication of costs. I think the working group will be kind of the vehicle that we can start having these conversations with GAN. Mayor Beddoes has said a number of times that he is interested in exploring joint opportunities where we can team up because together we are stronger. So I think there is a political will at the council table in GAN for to see more proposals for joint endeavors. And certainly as we get unpacking the arena, I think there'll be more things that we can add to the table, more topics, opportunities for shared programming and the like. So thank you for your comments, Councillor Jameson. I have taken them to heart and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, CAO. Any other members of council have any comments or question on this subject or any others on the staff report? If not, I'll refresh everyone's memory. Moved by Councillor Jameson, second by Councillor Durrell. The council approve the staff reports as recommended at the October 3rd, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Information items. Moved by Councillor, I'm going to have to get better at reading handwriting signatures here. Moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the information items be received and filed. Any questions or comments on the, Councillor Kalman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. I just wanted to, regarding the fire services report about the fire that happened earlier this year, I wasn't aware of the coordination that went into that event. We were here as it was unfolding, and I knew just driving through the outlet on my way here that there was a lot going on, but I didn't realize the degree to which the cooperation happens when there's an event of that magnitude. And I just wanted to commend all of the individuals and departments involved, fire services, operations, and Aqua, for their coordination, both in regard to the water use, making sure Lansdowne didn't run out of water, and also for traffic control. I think just knowing that that is going on behind the scenes when there's an event of that magnitude is really, really rewarding for our residents, that they should know more about that kind of thing. So thank you to all of those involved.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Maybe.
Deputy Mayor, and through you, again, to echo Councillor Kilman's thoughts there about how well oiled that machine was to make that fire maybe not as eventful as it may have been. My big question is, and I know that we do have dry hydrants around the township, and whether there's other locations being looked at. The one that came to mind for me was South Lake. I know it's on a busy highway, but it's still plenty of water there in the event of something on that side of the township. But I'm also wondering if there's any other locations that are being looked at to be activated or something put in to help cut down on the drive time, because again, the tanker accreditation accounts for your drive time and how many pumpers you can put in. But when you get to a larger fire, as that particular one was, timing does count. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Sorry. Fire chief, did you have a comment or?
And through you, Mr. Chairman, your point about dry hydrants is something that living in the township and not being close to water all the time and not having magic water all over like we do in the village and some of the surrounding areas, it certainly becomes a challenge to do that. We're currently looking at a number of different areas. Canada 32 at South Lake is a good location. It definitely comes with a few challenges. We have pumped from there without a dry hydrant. It is a little bit of a challenge there, but there are a few other spots we're looking throughout the township. We're a little light up in the northeastern end around Slack Road. We've been looking for some other areas like that up in that area. Once the new fire hall's built on 32 Highway, there'll also be a large tank there that we'll be able to use for a little bit of water backup and tanker shuttle on that as well. But yeah, we're certainly looking at various different means to get some more water. There's other types of inlets that we can use. We're seeing some new ones where they just kind of hang over the railing of the bridge and drop down into the water at different heights. So we're looking at those definitely, because the way the water is up and down throughout all these creeks and areas, it certainly becomes a bit more of a challenge. So we're certainly looking all the time for that.
Sure. If I could follow up, and I'm not sure there is one on Maple Grove Road, but on the other end, Woodburn, kind of just almost a colonnade. Are you able to connect to that if you had to? Because there is a dry hydrant there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, definitely be able to hook up to that as the standard connections are there. We also have the ability to go into Kingston on the Brewers Mills side, because there's one across 15 Highway. If we got in trouble on that, where it's a little bit farther away, but we've talked with Kingston and the rural services there as well about being able to access that if necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I agree with my colleagues. That fire here in Lansdowne back in the summer, it was large, required a lot of volume, but the coordination was something to be proud of, to know that our heads of staff, along with Aqua, as Councillor Kelman had mentioned, it was nice to know it unfolded that way. It's never meant to be to have to put out a major fire, but when it does happen, it's nice to know that the management and the coordination from everyone involved works the way it did. Well, thank you all. If there's no other comments on information items, I will read this again. That moved by Councillor Baby, seconded by Councillor Jameson. The information items be received and filed. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Action required items, planning report SR 171-23 official plan amendment to update section 9.5.3 community improvement plan project areas. Moved by Councillor Jameson, second by Councillor Maybe, that council adopts the official plan amendment attached to planning report SR 171-23 as exhibit A, to amend the text of section 9.5.3 of the township official plan, and that council directs planning and development staff to forward the amendment to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville for approval. Any comments or questions on this? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you. Did I err? Okay. Just making sure I'm following the set agenda. Planning report SR 168 23, file number D14 2023 010, 154 Club Island, zoning bylaw amendment from RI to RI-34, zoning bylaw number 07-079. Then moved by Counselor, is this Counselor Kelman? Has to be. Counselor Kelman's seconded by Counselor Grell. That council approve the zoning bylaw amendment attached to the planning report SR 168 23 as Exhibit H to rezone the subject property from Island Residential RI zone to Island Residential Rural Special Exemption 34 RI-34 to permit an existing addition to the dwelling, an existing deck added to the dwelling, and to permit the human habitation in an existing oversized sleeping cabin within an existing accessory building. Is there any questions or comments on this? Councilor, maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through to Director of Planning. Just wondering if there's any discussion about potential Airbnb at this site.
Through you, not that we're aware of. However, that's not a consideration when it relates to the actual land use parameters. So
I know I have to ask the question though, just to see, because we don't want it to become an issue.
Follow up, Counselor, maybe? No? Okay. No further questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Operations report SR 174 23 SCM grant application for waste reduction and diversion. Moved by Counselor Grell, seconded by Counselor Kelman, that the council direct staff to apply for a grant under the Green Municipal Fund offered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for feasibility study for Lansdowne, Big Hill, and Red Horse Road waste disposal sites. And that council direct staff to also apply for a grant under the Green Municipal Fund for a pilot project for Big Hill, Red Horse Road waste disposal sites. And that council authorized funding the township's portion of the feasibility study from the landfill studies and master plans budget. Director of Operations, do you want to speak to this or add any more, shed some light on some of this?
Thank you through, Chair. So this came to our attention earlier this year that we had a couple of landfills that we were unaware of. They had shown up in our official plan. One of them was located incorrectly. So when the ministry came calling, we took them on a tour of the entire township. And these two locations, there was certainly something out on site. So we walked throughout the site, and some of us even picked up some ticks while we were out there. And in the end, they were able to provide us with the original ECAs for these two locations, and they are municipal sites from the 1970s. So with that, there were two expectations that we had to address. The first one was that anything in water had to be removed by the end of the summer, being September 21st. We were able to accomplish that by, I believe it was October or August 20th. So we had everything removed in advance of August 20th, which, that made them fairly happy. And then the second one was that we would have a plan to address these two landfills and bring them within compliance by the end of the year. That doesn't mean that we had to have them in compliance by the end of the year, but that we would have a plan in place. So this is all part of that process. We're exploring what available options there are. We would be within compliance to cap these sites and provide monitoring. But talking with our consultant, Melrose, they suggested that there might be some opportunities through FCM to undertake a pilot project and completely remove these sites. What the benefit is of removing those, at the one site, we have existing homes within a close proximity of the site. So the fear of long-term environmental implications is there. Additionally, you have your setbacks required, and in a time when people are looking for land to build on, we want to make it as available as possible. So if we remove these sites where we currently don't own the land, that saves us from having to acquire the land first place, having to go through the capping process, and then also having the long-term monitoring. So if we're successful with the grant, then it would be financially feasible to do this.
Thank you. That was a pretty comprehensive report supplied to council on the subject matter. Is there any questions from members of council? Councillor Grawl.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, your worship, does the Ministry of Environment, seeing as this is now 50 odd years old, I guess, the 1970s, were there any agreements that we've seen in place at that time, or is it just something that they have the right to 50 years on? That'd be question number one. Question number two, I noticed in our report that we haven't mentioned Briar Hill. Would Briar Hill fall under that feasibility study? And my last question is very simple. At the end of the night, what are we being asked to agree to? Is it just a feasibility study and the idea of removing goods from Red Horse Lake and Big Hill waste disposal? And just a comment, I did read the full report. I read the 2018 report from Black Creek, is it? South of Peterborough. Have I got that name correct? Black Creek. And in that summary that I read, it mentioned it was a small site. It was remediation only. And they were transferring their goods down to the fire pit down there on the energy fire pit, I guess. So I didn't read anything in there about dollar values. I didn't read anything in there really that substantiated the 60% reclamation claim. So are there further reports? Did they find it successful? Did they find it a waste of money? Because it was a pilot project. And have they continued in any way, shape, or form with that type of program? Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship. So the MOE timelines, when they provided us with the ECAs, the timelines were laid out within that. It is agreed upon with the ECA that the municipality is responsible forever for those sites. They are municipal sites. They are on private land, but given that it was a municipal landfill, the municipality is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of those sites. What is council approving? So the feasibility study, in a nutshell, we want to move an excavator out to Lansdowne and move an excavator to the other two sites as well. Get a sense of what the composition is. So dig some test holes, pull the material out, and actually they have somebody that come in that does this for a living and sorts through the waste to get a sense of what the composition is of the waste, and then tells us whether we do have a business case for undertaking this study. So this is the pre-engineering of actually doing the work and letting us know whether it is a feasible project or not. And then we provide that to FCM. In terms of what you're approving at this point, the reason that we want to move ahead with both stages at the same time, when we spoke with FCM, they said we can apply for the feasibility study. And once that is submitted, we can then also apply for the pilot project. And why the rush and timeline is because there is one pot of money and a lot of competing efforts, a lot of competing projects trying to get in there. So if we can push them both through at the same time, we have a higher probability of being successful with this project. Black Creek, but Black Creek was part of the Durham Energy Center. It was a landfill that the Durham region had that had to be removed. That was part of the approvals for the Durham Energy Center, was that this had to be completely removed. No, there was no documentation in terms of what the removal rate was, but their target was 70%. So the remainder of the waste from the set, they were successful with their 70%. The remainder of the waste was transferred to the Energy Durham Center, and it was incinerated at that point. And then the cost was 1.5 million. I think I referred to it in the report, and this came directly from the consultants that did the project.
The report on Black Creek mentioned a company that they had do the assessment, I guess. Argo or something was the name. And are there a number of companies that are involved in this, or is it too early for us to know? Would we put an RFP on that sort of thing? Thank you,
Your Worship. This is something that initially we were having a conversation with GIP, who was involved in the Energy Durham Center. Obviously, there are other firms that will do this as well, so we'd have to do a competitive process in order to engage them.
And do we have data on what Durham, are they continuing with this type of program? Because I remember a discussion years ago in this chamber when we were talking about waste and we were talking about an incinerator and so on. And I believe it was the engineering firm at that time, might have been Melrose. They were telling us at that time that that thing is a monster and it requires huge amounts of input. And that would drive the concept of mining garbage. And I just want to waste landfill sites. And I just want to be cautious that we're taking an approach here that is good for us. I can understand if they're feeding a fire-breathing dragon down there, but maybe it's not appropriate to us. And I would feel more comfortable if I saw something from Durham that said, yep, this was very successful. It appears that they remediated the site with the items left behind, with the soils and whatever. That seems it was successful. It is a small site. And I also noticed that the timeline on that thing was really tight or close. It was only weeks to get it done. It took, I think, 6 weeks to move in the equipment. There's a video on it actually available if you want to see it. They moved the equipment in 6 weeks, and then 6 weeks later they were done and wrapped up. And that's pretty impressive. So I wouldn't mind some more information from them just to see if they feel, yep, that was a really good thing we did. Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship. There is another example online for the city of Barrie is doing the same thing. And it is a massive site. By comparison to Lansdowne, it's at least twice the size, if not bigger. And when we spoke with the consultant with GIP, they're looking at doing one, and I thought I had it in my notes, but I believe it was Ajax that they're looking to do a secondary site at this point now as well. So this is a process that is proving itself as being, a good alternative for gaining capacity, open air space with our landfill.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Your last comments kind of bode to the question of the urgency, meaning there's a number of municipalities in similar situations. Councillor Jameson.
Some pretty, we had an opportunity to talk about this in the waste management working group, and it's some pretty scary looking numbers with respect to how much the alternatives, what's 11 million, eh? Or 13 for that matter. So the question I have for the director, Deputy Mayor, is in the event that this application does not proceed, do we proceed in another direction that will be determined at some later date, or what's the pressure on us to get this thing sorted, and how will we approach it? Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship. Two options were provided in the report. One, currently our end of life for the landfill is to transition into a transfer site. It's been approved with MOE as our closure plan. So this is an alternate to the closure plan that obviously we have to work with MOE for this to be approved as well. But the numbers in the report, and these are high level at this point until we've actually dove into this project a little more. They're high level, but I think that they speak for themselves, that this is, even without the funding opportunity, that it's more cost effective for us to have our own site and be able to keep it open as long as possible. The other consideration that I really didn't make notes to in here is that by us transitioning into a transfer site, we're at the mercy of another location to handle our waste, where if we can keep it in-house, then at least we know in 10, 15 years, we're going to have somewhere for our waste, where if we're at a transfer site and we're moving it to somewhere else, and everybody else is doing the same thing, because we're coming to the end of our capacity for our landfills in Ontario and, and North America for that matter. I think it would be beneficial for us to try to keep our sites open as long as possible, so that everybody else can kind of figure out what the next steps are, and we'll be in good position for that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Grell.
Thank you. Just again, I'm feeling a little dense, I guess. In what we are talking about tonight, we're asking funding from FCM for feasibility. And if they said, yep, let's go ahead, what we're really approving is 2 former waste sites being removed and moved somewhere, whether it's Lansdowne or Briar Hill. But we aren't at this stage approving any further work at Lansdowne. Am I reading that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
I apologize for putting that information ahead. I put the cart ahead of the horse there. We're going to use the information from Lansdowne to give us an idea of what our availability is for that site as well too.
CAO, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. And just one further clarification, I think it's in the report. Once the feasibility study is done, it'll better inform the extent of the work at Big Hill and at Red Horse. So we'll be able further to refine the costs for the pilot project. So we will come back to council with those costs before we incur any work on the pilot project. Did I misspeak?
That is correct.
Councillor Jameson.
I know this is not as exciting as putting in new pickleball lines, but this is the hard stuff that people don't want to think about. But I really appreciate the work that's gone into this, and it was kind of eye-popping to look at some of the challenges that we are going to have to face up to. So I appreciate the staff input here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question, council? I have one for the Director of Operation. Is on these applications for grant money, is there any timeline windows being presented whatsoever? Expectation dates?
Thank you, through your worship. What we're told, the only information that we got from FCM in terms of timelines was that it took about 6 months for approvals, which is why when they said to us that we could apply simultaneously, that's that's to our benefit, because the actual project for the feasibility study should only take us a couple weeks of field work and then a couple weeks of report. So we'll have that information in due time.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity. No more questions? Sorry, Councillor Rowe.
Sorry, I hate to bring it up, but if
That's okay.
if the FCM didn't fly the funding, are we looking at over $1 million to fully remove those 2 waste sites? Or have we addressed that yet? Maybe I'm just sort of extrapolating there from the option 2. We'd be looking at over $1 million.
Sorry, from the table provided,
Yeah.
we'd be looking at $775,000 for full removal.
Okay.
The other option would be for capping, which inquires the property acquisition, the monitoring, and so on and so forth.
So we're looking at maybe just $750,000 to remove it and move it to our own waste sites.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this subject? Comments? Okay. Due to the complexity, I'll read this again. Moved by Councillor Grell, second by Councillor Kelman, that the council direct staff to apply for a grant under the Green Municipal Fund offered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for feasibility study for the Lansdowne, Big Hill, and Red Horse Road waste disposal sites. And that council direct staff to also apply for a grant under the Green Municipal Fund for a pilot project for Big Hill, Red Horse Road waste disposal sites. And that council authorize funding the township's portion of the feasibility study from the landfill studies and master plans budget. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you. Ten point four, operations report SR-179-23, Lyndhurst Wetland Viewing Platform. Moved by Councillor Grell, seconded by Councillor Kelman, that council direct staff to proceed with finalizing design and tender preparations for the wetland viewing platform. Questions, members of council? Councillor Kelman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. First, I do want to note again, as it's stated in the report, that the community has already raised over $21,000 to go towards this project. And I just wanted to ask the Director of Operations, what are the CRCA details that still need to be finalized?
Thank you, through your worship. With the CRCA, we're, how do I explain the required setbacks? Director of Planning is going to help me out with this one.
Thank you. Through you, the platform is a conservation structure. The zoning that it's within the open space zoning doesn't contemplate any structures within the open space zone. So the location of the structures, staff have worked with the Conservation Authority to find a location that the Conservation Authority is willing to support and issue a permit for under their regulation. However, it still doesn't comply with zoning, so we need to do a minor variance. So the conversation with the CRCA has been back and forth to make sure that the location and design is such that they can support it, which in a roundabout way brings it back to a position where township staff can support a recommendation to the Committee of Adjustment based on our zoning and official plan policies. So we've been working through those details. We're in a position now where what's in front of council is something that both the CRCA and staff have agreed upon. So in order to move it ahead, an application for minor variance is required to go to the Committee of Adjustment to address the location.
Any other questions from council? Cool. I'll read the vote again. Moved by Councillor Grell, second by Councillor Kelman, that council direct staff to proceed with finalized design and tender preparation for the wetland viewing platform. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Operations report SR-176-23, municipal drainage engineers report extension. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the council approve in accordance with 39 section 1, I should say, of the Drainage Act, a 1-year extension for Robinson Consultants to complete an engineer's report on the Smith Bulger drain and branches, the Poldevart Webster drain, the Creek Road drain and branches, and the Jones Municipal drain. And that council approve in accordance with 39 section 1 of the Drainage Act, a 1-year extension to McIntosh Perry Consulting Engineers to complete an engineer's report on Allen Drain, Bierman Drain, and the Pierce Blasco Municipal Drain. Questions from members of council to our Director of Operations? Go ahead, Councilor Maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Director of Operations. The 1-year extension, was there difficulties in getting the completed work done? And that's why the extension is required? Excuse me.
Thank you, through your worship. The 1-year extension is a requirement in order for us to be able to proceed at this point. There were some delays with getting approvals because of COVID. Every file seemed to park. So things got up and moving again. And now we're at a place where the consultants have the draft reports together, and then we'll just proceed with the next steps as if we never stopped.
Councilor Grohl.
Not sure if it's 100% germane to this particular resolution here, but under the Drainage Act, does the landowner have the right to refuse unengineered drainage through their property, for instance, through land trust or something of that nature? Does anybody know the answer to that? Or once an engineering report is out, is it incumbent upon the township to execute it?
So any property affected, I do know this much. And additionally, we do have, in November, I have one of the engineers coming to speak to council for all of these types of things. But any property that is adjacent to and sees any benefit from the municipal drain does have to pay their portion for that benefit. I think that answers your question.
No, I was actually, if somewhere in the middle of the drain, there's a landowner was reluctant and perhaps through land trust or something, can they refuse and then basically block the drainage for, I guess, the upstream people? Is that, I don't know how the Drainage Act would deal with that. That was brought to my attention and I said, I have no idea.
Our CAO wants to weigh in on this.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I believe there is a round of public consultations related to the engineer's reports. So there, at that stage, there is input from the affected landowners. And I do think there is an appeal mechanism under that if they have a disagreement with what the proposed plan is. So I think there is recourse, but as Dave says, when the engineers come in November to council, they'll be able to address the concern in more detail than my understanding.
Any other questions? Councilor Maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. So kind of poses a question because we've been down this one a little bit before on the south end of Lansdowne here and with CN and their third crossing when they put it in and blocked some drainages. So again, we're in that same sort of boat, but we don't seem to have any power or latitude to move through their property on this, but they have indeed blocked water passage through and to the south as our previous our first thing on our list tonight. Sorry, gone blank with what it was, that proposal, and how that water moves to the west and south. And it's through that area that this concern has come from, because the south end of Lansdowne and the surface water and how it gets across the tracks and out into the field and moves on to the river. So how's this react to that?
I think that's a great question for the consultant when they come. I'm not going to profess to know everything about municipal drains. We do have a municipal drain inspector, but these guys are really the professionals when it comes to this and know the legislation inside and out. They will put us on the right track.
Any other questions from members of council? From my historical perspective, memory serves me correct that when a municipal drain is approved or voted upon by the members attached to that watershed, I'm not going to throw the number out. I believe that in my own mind is 70%. But once that vote is established, then the whole process moves forward, regardless of one or two naysayers. But as Director of Operations had indicated, when we get the experts here, that would be a perfect time. While we're on the subject, just on a side note, Director, I did get a phone call representing himself and two other neighbors this past week. I know Councillor Grell got that same call. There is a beaver dam established now to the east. I guess it might be considered north, depending on Jones's Creek. It's just, I can give you the exact location. It's south of the Junetown Road interchange by about 2 kilometers, and they say you can see it from County Road. So that may need to be addressed as it's already affecting landowners upstream. So I wanted to pass that on before I overlooked that.
While we're talking through your worship, while we're talking about the Joneses Creek, there is a bit of a challenge with that municipal drain because there currently isn't a suitable outlet. What I'm told from the engineers, Front of Young is no longer supporting the municipal drain, and the suitable outlet for the municipal drain, which is one of the requirements, was located within Front of Young. So that's something that they plan to talk to in November when they come in as well too.
Okay. So another question for that, for the engineers that do come forward. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'll read this again. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell, that council approve in accordance with 39 Section 1 of the Drainage Act, a 1-year extension for Robinson Consultants to complete an engineer's report on the Smith Bulger Drain and Branches, Boulevard Webster Drain, Creek Road Drain and Branches, and Jones Municipal Drain. And that council approve in accordance with 39 Section 1 of the Drainage Act, a 1-year extension for McIntosh Perry Consulting Engineers to complete an engineer's report on Allen Drain, Bierman Drain, and the Pierce Blasco Municipal Drain. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We actually have duplication here, right? Technically, yes. Okay.
We're on top.
Right. Section 10.6 on your agenda, Girls Incorporated of Upper Canada Proclamation Request, International Day of the Girl. Moved by Councillor Kelman and seconded by Councillor Grell. Whereas the United Nations has declared October the 11th, which happens to be tomorrow, as International Day of the Girl. And whereas there is a growing recognition around the globe that support for girls and equality is the key to healthy communities. And whereas the Day of the Girl is about highlighting, celebrating, discussing, and advancing girls' lives and opportunities across the globe. And whereas declarations of support raise awareness about the importance of International Day of the Girl and issues faced by girls. Whereas the Girls Incorporated is an organization that works with hundreds of girls every year to inspire them to be strong, smart, and bold leaders and advocates for equality so that girls can live, work, and be safe in their communities and in their future. And whereas Girls Incorporated of Upper Canada focuses on the development of the whole girl to learn to value herself, take risks, equips girls to navigate gender, economic, and social barriers, and grow up healthy, educated, and independent. Whereas the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands joins Girls Incorporated of Upper Canada and other organizations and believes that girls have the right to be themselves and to resist gender stereotypes, that girls have the right to express themselves with originality and enthusiasm, that girls have the right to take risks, to strive freely, and to take pride in success, and that girls have the right to accept and appreciate their bodies, that girls have the right to have confidence in themselves and to be safe in the world, and that girls have the right to prepare for interesting work and economic independence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council hereby do proclaim October the 11th, tomorrow, 2023, as International Day of the Girl in the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Any discussion or question from council? Comments? Councillor Kelman.
Just clarification, is this declaration just for this year or would this be going forward?
Our clerk will answer that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is just for this year.
further comment after contemplation? Councillor Cummins? No? No other questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you. Ten point seven on your agenda, Local Government Week proclamation. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell. Whereas October 15th to the 21st, 2023 is Local Government Week in Ontario, an opportunity to reflect on the vital services delivered by municipal governments. And whereas municipal governments play a vital role in helping to define the character, priorities, physical makeup, and quality of life of communities across Ontario. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Fody, on behalf of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands, do hereby join with partners such as Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario, thus AMCTO, and acknowledging and celebrating the work of the local municipalities by proclaiming October 15th to the 21st, 2023 as Local Government Week in the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Any comments, questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you. Ten point eight on your agenda, Councillor Jameson, United Counties of Leeds and Grenville UCLG parking enforcement. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell. Whereas the Council of Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands passed a new parking bylaw on October the 11th, 2023. And whereas the parking bylaw regulates parking on properties owned by the township and township road allowances, but does not apply to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville UCLG roads. And whereas there have historically been parking enforcement issues associated with UCLG roads in the settlement areas of the township. And whereas the township has limited bylaw enforcement resources and no authority to enforce parking on UCLG roads, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands requests that UCLG implement a parking bylaw and enforcement parking on UCLG roads. Questions or comments by council? No, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Just okay. Any other comments or questions before I give the mayor's update? Okay. International Day of the Girl is tomorrow, as we just heard. This day is dedicated to celebrating the voices and power of girls, championing their rights worldwide, and reflecting on the challenges they continue to face because of their gender. Also, Fire Prevention Week is October 8th to October 14th. This year's campaign is Cooking Safety Starts With You. Pay attention to fire prevention. The campaign works to educate everyone about simple but important actions that they can take when cooking to keep themselves and those around them safe. Small Business Week is from October 15th to October 21st. Join the Business Support Network on October 16th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for their free Fall Business Week's workshop. This year's workshop is geared towards connecting businesses with resources and information to succeed in the ever-changing business climate. The Rear of Leeds, the ROLL, I should state, Aid Food Bank is having a food drive on Saturday, October the 21st from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Lansdowne and Sealy's Bay Fresh Marts and the Lyndhurst Library. Please support that initiative. Thank you. In partnership with St. Lawrence Parks Commission, the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Isles staff have arranged for area boaters to use the Ivy League campground ramp this year because of the work being done on the Ivy League boat ramp. The opportunity is free and is intended to lift out only. Please visit our website for more information regarding our boat ramp availability times. This past weekend on Saturday, Councillor Gorell and our CAO Steve Donachie spoke well and representing other members who were there. Councillor Kelman was present. Councillor Maybe was present. Our Director of Operations, David Holliday, was there, as well as myself, to witness RDG, the Rockport Development Group's culmination and their longtime effort to acquire or attempt to acquire and then eventually succeed with the help of the late MP Gord Brown, as was mentioned a number of times the other day with different speakers. And now they come to fruition of having the park, the Rockport Park, as is affectionately known. They unveiled the plaque down there the other day. It was actually a beautiful stonework. You really should, if you haven't had the opportunity to go see it or see pictures online. It looks even more impressive in the real life. It's a tribute to all the people who donated countless money to that initiative, and gives them the kudos they deserve for having made that come to fruition. So anybody that hasn't been down there, Councillor Gorell.
And just a correction, and through your worship, it was the Friends of Rockport Custom Stock. RDG was a contributor, but it was through the efforts of Force.
Okay, I stand corrected. And I'm
you.
glad you said that. Thank you. All their members were there, weren't they? The initial members, so 5 of them, they were all there. 2 of them are moving on or retiring. One is literally moving away, but was told they couldn't. We'll see how that plays out. And that's what happens when you get great volunteers in the community and they make a move to maybe move away and are blocked affectionately from doing so. Any other comments or notices? Okay, go ahead, Councillor, maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. A couple announcements. At the recent gala, Jennifer Briel of the Visitor Center, the Gananoque TLTI Visitor Center, was awarded for her tourism advocacy in promoting the area. So it's a great honor, and I've seen her in action and many times there, and it's amazing how she refers people to our area and different, not only the town of Gananoque, but the township. And standing in the background sometimes when there's visitors there. And I was there today, had visitors, as you met earlier. And again, the same thing, how she interacts and tells them about the different areas, different things we have. Even in the north, the far north, as we call it, up in Lyndhurst and Sealy's Bay, and the activities that are there. So kudos to her for getting that award from the Chamber of Commerce. Secondly, on the December 1st is the tree lighting in Gananoque with Candy Cane Lane, which is put on by the committee, which I am a part of now. I was elected to that one. But the Christmas parade is on the 2nd in Gananoque. And again, we've had great representation from the TLTI Fire Department, but also the Board of Works, and were there last year, and I hope to see them there again. But again, there's a lot of people around on the streets that are TLTI residents, and there can be a couple thousand people lining that route. So anybody who can show up, you can register through the Gananoque Chamber of Commerce, TLTI, and participate in that great event at Christmas time. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll make a comment that with darkness befalling us earlier, the days are literally getting shorter, as we've all seen. There's a number of people still out walking and exercising on the road. So take due diligence when you're traveling, especially during times when people may be doing that at 6:30 in the morning or 6 before much daylight. And then again at 7 o'clock at night. Up until today, I guess we could say that the weather has been conducive to a lot of outdoor activity still, and it still will be. We haven't seen the end of this yet, and the diehards will be out there regardless of the weather. So just take note. A lot of them wear reflective clothing, but some do not, as I witnessed the last couple of days. So just be careful. Before we meet again, there will be a Halloween night. As usual, along with the fire department, we ask everybody to be careful. Dress your kids appropriately. Speaking of reflective equipment or reflective clothing, I should say, if they need equipment, so be it. But let the kids have their fun. It is a fun night for them. It's a big event for them. And then when they drag all that candy back home, it's a big event for us. So be cognizant of the fun they have Halloween night. I know everyone looks forward to that, kids and adults alike. Is there anything else we missed for highlights coming up? If not, November will soon be on us, and we'll have, from what we've heard tonight, a full agenda coming forward for the month of November in different ways, and we look forward to all that. Bylaws. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell, that 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaws 23-057, 058, 059, 060, 061, 062, 063, 064, and 23-065. And that 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaw 23-066, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands at its October 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting and October 10th Council meeting. Any comments or questions? Councillor Jameson.
Just to say that there's a long list here, but a lot of them are all the changes that have been made to bylaws respecting noise, property control, and so on. And I know very early in the term, the previous term, this discussion came and had to be put to one side because of COVID and everything else. So I just want to say how much I appreciate the work that has been done to get us here with these particular bylaws tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And it's that time of night. Moved by Councillor Kelman, second by Councillor Grell, that council adjourn. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you to the staff.